Okay, I think we're live. Let us know in the chat if everything is functional. Hope we've had a good week. It's Friday already, which is kind of scary. That went by quickly. So we're doing an early casual Friday type of thing. It is Friday, isn't it? I literally thought for a moment it was Monday. It's just really confusing. But yeah, we're doing an early casual Friday. You know, let people enjoy the second half of the day on their weekend. Ourselves included to a lesser extent. And yeah, let us, happy Friday, cred. Thank you, Brian. Looks like everything's working. Yeah, it's the two of us today. It should be fun. We'll answer some questions that I've written on your behalf, so you don't have to worry about coming up with them. And then go through some news stuff, which may or may not be interesting. And then, yeah, we'll move on with our lives. First things first, go to blockfolio.com, which is now FTX, and download that app. It's got no leveraged, structured product, weird stuff on there that'll get you wrecked or liquidated. It's for your portfolio tracking, spot trading, and swapping asset to asset. The Duck says it every time. It's probably the best mobile app that exists for crypto. It's the one I shill to family members when I buy them Solana and watch them outperform me for like 6 months in a row now. So, if you want to be the beloved son or daughter at the upcoming Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, there's still a chance to shill a shitcoin breakout to your family members, and no better place to do it than formerly Blockfolio, now FTX. So they're good to us, as the Duck says, so go check them out, support them because they support us, about as straightforward as that kind of stuff gets. So what I've done, and I haven't run this past you, Don, because I never do, is I've literally just come up with a list of 6 questions, which are probably the ones most people want answered. So the first one is, there's 6 of them, right? The first is Bitcoin going to go up or down? The second one is ETH going to go up or down? The third one is, I'm in altcoins, what should I do? The fourth is, I have no altcoins, what should I do? And then the final 2, number 5 is dog money moon a top signal or an alt season indicator? And the last one, why did everyone stop becoming millionaires from NFTs? When will it start again? I think that's a pretty decent selection as far as like lightning round, give reasonable answers to this sort of thing. What do you think? Am I missing anything?
No, I think that's actually excellent.
Okay, awesome. Go on.
It's gonna be hard to answer.
Oh, I know. That's kind of the beauty of it all, right?
I'm down for it.
Nice. And also leave any comments or questions in the chat. We'll try to get to you, and like a video if you like this type of stuff. Especially the joint Friday session. Also, people have been asking all weeks, like, why have you made some of your TA videos private? I've rugged the old ones. I've made them private because I want to make new versions of them. And it's really annoying when people like misinterpret / rely on old material and then kind of tweet stuff that isn't fully accurate now, and then rely on me as an authority having misunderstood the material. Do you know what I mean? So I'll get like a tag from a 2018 video. It's like, oh, but Crypto Cred said this. And it's probably not the most elegant articulation of something. And it just means I have to, deal with being an authority in arguments which aren't entirely compelling, and just generally acts as a bit of motivation to make these updates, which are so long overdue. So it's not like I'm rugging it. I'm not doing a filler cone where it's not going to be some Udemy paid course type of thing. The ones that are up are very good and recent and fully intact. The ones that are down just don't hold up to the same standard that I hold all of my content, and they just need a rework, and that rework is in the process. So that's the answer there.
I've actually been DM'd and someone said he would like to pay for them if they're like gone now. I was like, okay, this is how the paid group starts.
Right, yeah, it's the final rug. No, I've got no intention of charging for any of this, and if anyone tries to get you to pay for it, don't. It's just it's an update mechanism, if you will. The good ones, the ones which are fully up to date are still up there. It's just some of the old ones could be a lot better, and that's my intention. Now, of course, what's going to happen is I'm just going to be too lazy, and it's going to be a half-baked course for like another year until I get around to it. But we'll deal with that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So first things first, is Bitcoin going to go up or down? Great question, right? I'll give we'll try to be succinct with this. I think what we've had is a weekly breakout, and a move into the all-time high. Both of those are very significant. So regardless of whether you use this high as your market structure level, thus us making a higher high here, or if you're really kind of conservative and you say the all-time high is the last kind of significant market structure high, and now we've, technically broken it on a weekly basis, it doesn't really matter which kind of proxy for market structure you use. We now have a higher high, which is good. That's bullish. So overarching like weekly time frame bias is going to be bullish until proven otherwise. As we know from like the market structure video, that one's still up, I think. When you get a break in market structure, you get one of two ways that it resolves bullishly, right? The first is if it kind of does so. Let me draw this a bit better. Hold on, without such an extreme move. So here you go. Here you have your higher high, right, relative to the last area of market structure. And then the question is, okay, is this bullish on its own? Yes. Then how do we get long, or what are the continuation scenarios where a trade is most visible? Now, of course, there's the one where the market just goes up, right? Because it's all-time high, it's there, it just goes up, and you always have to be aware of that. There's not always going to be some sort of actionable pullback. But if there is, it can pull back, and you shouldn't see that as weakness until it really flops. Because sometimes you get a higher high, and then the market has to put in a higher low before continuing higher. You don't want to be that guy who chases the higher high and then gets like liquidated on the higher low before the real move comes along. There's nothing more agonizing than that. So when you get that kind of break in market structure, high into a higher high, the question is, where do you get continuation setups? Yes, there's one where it just teleports up from the breakout, that's good. But in terms of structure or setups, there are two areas, right, which tend to make sense. One is essentially the breakout level, and then the other one is the higher low / pullback level, okay? Now, the breakout level would simply mean you retest the area of market structure where you came from, and then that's where you put in the higher low and continue higher. Looking at this chart, that's sort of the setup we're getting now, more or less, as the market's retesting the top side of this range at around 60k. It's already done that, right? The market's at support. As we discussed on Monday's stream, we had the move below previous week's low into an area of support, and looks like we're going to close up here. So that's good. Technically, you're already getting number one, right? But if number one doesn't stick and the market starts to dip or fails to find support at this breakout shelf, it's not necessarily the end of the world, right? There's still a scenario in which it comes down to make a higher low somewhere, right? And then you get your high time frame trend continuation into a higher high. And in the second setup, yes, it's a bit more painful in the short term because the market dips, it looks scary, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of the trade that you can actually take and, the risk to reward ratio you can optimize for, etc., it's a lot more attractive, right? Because you're not like chasing a breakout and then, it gets frothy by the time it hits 80k. You'd rather long from 50 to 80 than from 65 to 80. Then the question is, okay, if we're using the higher low scenario, where can that theoretically come in? I think there's a pretty basic framework for this. Right now, the market's retesting this kind of market structure support at 60k. If 60k doesn't stick, the next area is around 50k. It's like all these round numbers just seem to make sense and line up with technical levels. So long story short, weekly time frame says up, but where it goes up from, you need to keep an open mind that if it's not from 60, right, if this doesn't play out and it closes below whatever, there's still a chance for some sort of higher low. That will actually be your expectation for some sort of higher low to come in around the 50k handle for something like that. I only at the higher low scenario and you make a lower low after an all-time high spike, then it's cooked, because then you're dealing with a 40k retest, this entire range, it'll just look really bad. So long story short, I know I've rambled on a ton there. Bitcoin up or down on the weekly time frame, probably up. And the only thing you have to deal with is is it up from 60 or is it up from 50? Both are reasonable. 60 until proven otherwise. If it proves otherwise, there's still a higher low worth punting on. And only if that higher low fails, then I'll say, you know what, the high time frame picture's changed and it's fucked. But for now, market structure's bullish, whether it continues directly or after a higher low. Just don't get liquidated if it is a slight pullback scenario would be my answer. I know it's a terribly long one, but whatever. Deal with it.
I mean, I totally agree. It's basically the exact same way that I look at it too. Like, we just retested support on the weekly. And if that holds, moon it. And if it doesn't, I mean, just buy the higher low.
Right.
And if that goes, I mean, we're legitimately fucked, I think. And I mean, so be it.
Right.
That seems like a decent risk to take when you have like 1 out of 3 like scenarios that totally fuck you, but you're well positioned for upside. I'd much rather take that. So
sounds good.
Yeah, I'm on board. Same kind of theory.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, that's about it. I don't think there's any other kind of time frames or anything else super interesting. I will mark that the daily is like at an area of resistance, for me at least. It's not like the clearest level, but daily market structure isn't as constructive as ETH, like in the very short term, just within this consolidation. Depends how you look at it, but essentially you had a high here, a low, and then this leg down technically broke market structure through here and made a lower low. And so any subsequent rally into the same cluster that the duck pointed out, when it formed here, that's technically a move into resistance after a daily break in market structure. And then the question is, well, how much weight do you give that, given the weekly's pointing up? Well, it's probably a wash, right? It's like a daily retest of resistance while the weekly looks bullish, and that kind of explains to some extent the chop you're seeing, right? It's like you're getting sellers at resistance, including fat fingers and whatnot, but the weekly picture is still generally positive. I'm just mentioning for shorter term or fresh positioning, I'd need a daily close at least above the cluster for the daily chart to start to align with the weekly, which is always nice and a signal for continuation. But just in the very, very short term, I'd bear in mind that this is technically a lower low and a move into resistance. Doesn't mean you have to sell it, but in terms of fresh positioning, just being aware of where we are in this range is probably helpful. And I think a lot of low time frame positions got completely nuked anyway on this craziness yesterday. Any comments on low time frame stuff, Doug, including this wick, fat finger, and then the retrace? Is it bullish that we've wicked and kind of came back like this? Are we going to backfill the wick? Any low time frame color?
I don't really think it matters too much. In general, when I see this kind of stuff, I expect at least usually what happens is you get the entire wick both ways filled in. So you head up, for example, in this scenario, head up, take out the top wick, and then go for the down one, or the opposite way. That's kind of usually how this stuff happens. But I mean, right now, I'm just seeing the weekly being bullish, and I'm like, okay, ignore the hourly. It's just it's some fuckery based on basically all the volume being in dog coins, right?
Right.
So it's doesn't really matter to me too much, but it's not making me too comfortable. I don't like to see this kind of stuff as someone that wants prices to go up, but it's not the end of the world. But generally speaking, when you see these big wicks to the downside, they tend to fill in, and then I'd much rather have them fill in before the upside wick gets filled rather than the opposite way, because usually kind of resolves the opposite way. But yeah.
So maybe some more chop, but nothing groundbreaking in that regard. Cool. Second question. So we answered the first one. Leave a like if we answered sufficiently or whatever. We'll probably get no likes if we ask that, given I went on a 10-minute market structure tangent.
Yeah, but you did say up, so I mean, it has to be
up unless it goes down, in which case it still goes up. But then if it goes down and doesn't go up at the high low, then definitely down, But it makes sense. If someone told you, hey, what do you think about Bitcoin? It's well, as long as it's above 50, generally it's good. Below that, we're probably fucked. I think that's a sufficient answer of someone who trades, right? Anyway, is ETH going to go up or down? This is, part 2, essentially. I'm finding it difficult to be look at this weekly chart, right? What kind of arguments am I supposed to make? Because essentially you have this 2 month, no, that's much longer. Depends how you draw the range, but we're in this kind of range high to range low scenario for absolutely ages, right? And now we've had a weekly close above it, and then this week was the retest, and it's being bought. Even if you forget the lower part or whatever, you essentially have, if we go back to 101, resistance with pretty clear rejections, and now this at the moment is looking like acceptance, which is a shift in character or whatever. Now I will say the pace of this all-time high breakout is not terribly comfortable. I just prefer a teleport, because otherwise you have to start entertaining Bitcoin analogs where it spikes all-time high and then just kind of drifts or floats. So that isn't making me comfortable. There are some broader market-wide stuff, like all the dog money, Coinbase #1 app, etc., which is just suggesting that there's a very limited pool of capital that's flowing around and at the expense of everything else, and then the rest of the market is propped up on what feels like farts at a certain point, right? But that kind of commentary aside, generally speaking, it's similar to Bitcoin. If this breakout sticks, awesome, because at that point, all-time high above weekly resistance, breakout, nothing left, yada yada, that's good. If it doesn't stick, I think there's a really clear and really good support in the, well, it's a significant support in the low to mid 3000s, around the 3000 handle, which essentially this cluster, breakout, resistance, chop, whatever, and has taken us to all-time high now. And also from a market structure point of view, right, if this is the low, this is the high, this is the higher low, this is the higher high, in a similar vein, in terms of candidates for higher low areas, this has got to be it. Because there's nothing else. At that point, the next support will necessarily force a lower low, and then weekly market structure looks fucked. This will look like the overshoot of the range, blah, blah, blah. So long story short for ETH, above 4K up. If it's below 4K, down in the short term, but still macro up as long as 3K holds. I think below 3K, then it just completely changes the picture, whereby you've got a failed range breakout of a multi-month range, and then a breach of support which threatens weekly market structure. That's actually one of the worst looking charts you can come up with. So ETH above 4K, good. If it fails, it's like, okay, maybe it wasn't ready. You give it one last chance at mid 3K. If that's not good enough, get the fuck out the way, because this triple bottom probably gets washed. I know that's a hot take, but that's sort of my view. It's similar, right? For Bitcoin, you essentially have a breakout, right? And you're saying, yes, if it goes up from the breakout, awesome. If it doesn't make a lower low, both of those are acceptable, but anything else is like completely unacceptable. Sort of get it the fuck out my face, bear market, zero, all the hyperbole type of complete 180. And I'm comfortable making a similar argument for ETH, right? If you want to break out and go, fucking awesome, it's an all-time high, hard to be bearish. If it's not ready yet, it's that Patrick Star SpongeBob meme, like you'll go when you're ready with that rock. Funny, Rock's got rug today, so maybe it's a bit of a sore topic. But it's the same thing. If you're not ready to go now, I'll give you a chance, a redemption arc, the prodigal son in the Bible, to form a higher low here, and then go after the quote-unquote shakeout, whatever this is. But if I'm giving you the all-time high, and that's not good enough, if I'm giving you a higher low, and that's not good enough, then get the fuck out of my face. You're clearly just weak and no one wants to buy you, and, I'll see you at the triple bottom or some sort of awkward cluster retest here, and that just forms a completely different picture at that point. That's my ETH take.
I mean, with ETH, like the higher it goes right now, the more nervous I get when it starts dipping below the weekly breakout again.
Right.
Like if it dipped basically this week, I would have been like, okay, 3.3, 3.4, like a good dip to buy. But if it goes like another 10, 15, 20% and then starts dipping, I get really, really nervous. Because then what you basically do is already like fading the breakout. I don't want to see that. So, I mean, either it dips relatively soon or I want to just see it go hard. Otherwise, I'll just see if I can kind of reduce my ETH exposure. But yeah, on the same kind of page, I think ETH goes up. I don't really see a reason to be bearish. But if it does like start heading up further into like a serious breakout, because right now it's not really a serious breakout. It's just like inching above. And that's fine. Those sometimes get like engulfed and then it goes back down to the next support, like you said. But if it does go any further than this, like the further up it goes, the less likely I'm going to be to bid like 3.3, 3.4. Yeah. Because at that point, it gets really, really scary to bid anything other than just bet on just complete, utter melt up, basically.
So what Duck is saying is essentially, if the failed breakout is going to be bullish, it shouldn't break out that far, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Thanks for kind of translating my
that's fine.
gibberish.
No, that makes sense. It makes sense. So yeah, that's basically ETH. It's the same for Bitcoin. Like the TLDR is, if the breakouts stick, great. If they don't stick, not the end of the world, as long as higher lows form at 50-ish for Bitcoin and 3K-ish for ETH. If that condition isn't met, just fuck off. Everything looks like a piece of shit at that point. And the good part of it looking like a piece of shit is it'll set up some really nice reclaim setups, right? Because whenever you have a failed breakout, right? And I've talked about this for literally years of my life now. Whenever you have like a failed breakout, all of you have seen this before, you probably do it in your sleep. Whenever you have a failed breakout, market comes in and, it looks so bullish, and then it fails. Whatever happens next, right, maybe it goes down a lot or just chops. Once you get back to the original level where the failed breakout occurred and it gets reclaimed, this tends to be an insane long, like a really, really good long, because usually the excess portion of the breakout, there's no resistance here. Like you don't draw this or do any kind of weird stuff. You get like a free ride through this leg. And in this case, or in both cases, you also get like the free ride into price discovery, which would be fucking sick. So even in the worst case scenario where failed breakout, blah blah blah, dooms, yada yada, at least you'll know as you watch your net worth go to zero that sometime in the future you'll have a nice continuation set up to long into price discovery with more confidence. So that's something to bear in mind. Like failed setups yield future setups, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. Yeah, cool. I think we've answered that. Question 3. I am in altcoins. What should I do? I think my answer depends. Like, it depends on the altcoins and like your time horizon, all that type of shit. Like, people are still waiting for a proper retro alt season where Bitcoin does nothing and your entire altcoin watch list is just green. And it doesn't matter like what it is, what the narratives are, the inflows, outflows, volumes, etc. It literally just moons, right? And I don't know. It feels like a lot of people are having alt season if they're slightly more diligent with their research and what kind of ecosystems they're playing in. It feels like they're just like many like mini L1 alt seasons going on at the same time, even if it's not like super obvious among the majors that like it's mooning. So my answer to that in terms of I'm in altcoins, what should I do, is it kind of depends on the trade and what type of altcoins you're in. Which isn't like a terribly helpful answer, because my thesis is still that if the market like mega shits or mega moons from here, altcoins won't do super well except for a select few. So if you've got like well positioned and you're probably up multiples and whatever ecosystem plays, I think those are fine, and you know they'll probably feel some heat if the market melts, whatever. But most people trading those are doing those for the crazy multiples on the lower cap stuff. So you're probably okay, and that's just a separate part of your portfolio. And I wouldn't sacrifice like really good mid cap or, you know, well researched ecosystem plays just for short term volatility. So that's kind of one thing. As for the more, you know, blue chip household names, whatever, I don't know. I think it's an okay environment for alts right now if we have these like sticky breakouts which don't do super well, and we've seen certain names pop off on those occasions, and you know certain ecosystems do this Dalai Lama engulf stuff. I just think from like a trend cyclical point of view, the picture for volatility in the majors needs to be clearer for me. Like, I either want, you know, the move down, which comes with a lot of liquidations and I can trade it up in the short term, or I want the blow off top and then the move down, which forms some sort of range consolidation, and then really lean into alts there. I think leaning into alts right now, you're either that kind of ecosystem Chad that has deep plays and knows what he's doing, or you're kind of at the mercy, or you're kind of on borrowed time while the majors aren't doing shit. Because at one point it'll become super clear whether this is a breakout that sticks and it's going to moon, or it's a failed breakout and the move down to those higher low areas that we talked about is probably going to be quite unpleasant, like for everyone, right? So it just feels like unless you have conviction and well-established like pre-existing positions in altcoins, I think trading them is fine. But it sort of feels on borrowed time, given I know we've been saying this for weeks now, which is ironic, but reaching some sort of decision point in the majors. So TLDR, if you're well positioned, you're probably fine. If you're trying to trade short term, you know, long short futures type of stuff, probably fine. But from like a sector / portfolio rotation point of view, I still don't think it's attractive. I either need the nuke to buy some liquidations for a shorter term trade, or like the mega moon hit like 70, 80k and then form some sort of range to really lean into it. That's my current view of altcoins.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my view as well. Oh, wow, we're on board with everything basically today. But it's like, it's this thing where like if Bitcoin goes to 70k, I think altcoin Bitcoin pairs are going to fuck off and suffer a lot. And I think if Bitcoin goes to 50k, the same is going to happen. And you're actually going to see massive liquidations on the altcoins. And I could see both of those things happen in the near future, right? Doesn't mean they have to happen like in the next 3, 4, 5 days, but I could see them happen in the next week to 2, or maybe 3. And then it's like that time window that you have until that kind of move happens is your opportunity to like make money with altcoins and get out of them. And if you think that there's a good play to be had on some of them during that time, I mean, be my guest, right? But it's like, as like the whole ecosystem, and I mean, altcoins have been an entire ecosystem. It's kind of crazy how much they've grown. I wouldn't want to be like too exposed in the short term. if you're like long-term trading them and you don't mind like a 20% haircut against Bitcoin, or like 10, 15, 20% or whatever it's going to be, I mean, then you can do whatever, right? If you're good, if you're well positioned, and if you're kind of like trading them spot, I'm not going to tell anyone to sell any of that. More of the leverage, kind of the people that I'm trying to tell that doesn't really make much sense to be too leveraged going into like what is either a failed breakout for Bitcoin and ETH, because I mean ETH is basically breaking out right now, very, very slowly, but still breaking out. So you're either like, what you're basically doing when you're betting on altcoins right now is you're either saying, okay, I think these breakouts are just going to go sideways for a long time, or you're saying the entire kind of dynamic has changed, which I mean, this time is different, usually doesn't work well for people. Or you're saying, I don't really care about like losing 10, 15, 20% before like a bigger move to the up or downside. And I think like that's the biggest problem with the altcoins right now, is that if you position yourself right now and they move down 10, 15%, you're in that weird position where you have to decide whether you want to keep them or sell them. And then there's actually going to be good setups to be had once the move has actually happened, I think. So what you're basically going to be doing is you're going to be entering altcoins, or like you're going to be in altcoins with like a position of weakness. And then you're going to have to make hard choices whether you think like, okay, is Bitcoin going to go further up than 70K, or is Bitcoin going to go further down than 50K? And do I want to hold my altcoins if any of those happen? And that's not a situation I want to be in. So yep. I don't really want to be in too many.
It's pretty reasonable. I think the TLDR from both of us to some extent is if you're well positioned already, which typically means like ecosystem plays within spot up a lot, right? You're like, you know, not fresh positioning necessarily, then that's probably fine. If you're trading short term to mirror volatility in Bitcoin and ETH or whatever, you know, like if the market dumps 5% and you just buy whatever Dalai Lama Hasaka tweets, I think that's reasonable, you know, that type of stuff. But in terms of portfolio, rotationally, etc., it's a bit more precarious. There are better circumstances under which to lean portfolio-wise into alts, which would either be on the nuke and then the expectation that you know, that's the bottom before the market goes higher, or on the post-breakout range in the majors where, you know, the environment is just set up for those to do well. So trading / existing positions, tick. Heavy rotation in terms of portfolio management, not so tick. Is that roughly fair?
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
Okay, and I guess we've answered both questions in that regard, right? I have no altcoins, what should I do? It's sort of, we've impliedly or implicitly, I think both of those are correct. Whatever, English is hard. We've answered that question, which is that volatility of some sort is likely, given the market's hanging on a breakout. If the majors moon, some alts at least, may shit. I'm sure we'll see some decoupling, right? Some of them will just follow along, some of them will shit, whatever. But the opportunity will come in the post-breakout like range / consolidation that forms in Bitcoin and ETH. And that's where you can rotate. If the market nukes, you'll probably see liquidations and all that kind of scary stuff. So if you're looking for discounts or retests of levels, that's also where the expected value of rotating is higher. So I have no altcoins. What should I do? Probably wait. But in terms of more practical stuff, this is where you do your research, right? The ecosystems that you find interesting, the technical levels which are attractive, maybe some mid caps, you set up your watch lists and all that type of shit, so that you know if the market moons, okay, when it ranges or when it dips, that's when the alts are going to perform well. I'm going to leave my orders. If it's nuking, you know, where are the lows that are probably going to get poked? Where is the overshoot wick going to end up? And where do I want collateral and all that type of stuff? So yeah, what should I do? Plan. If it moons, wait for Bitcoin and other stuff to range and then enter, or even slightly earlier. If it dooms, if you're picking up some liquidated discounts, that's probably fine as well. But for now, planning is probably the best thing to do in either case, given we're not quite at the action point yet. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, definitely just keep a watch on the coins that you like. Yes. See if they behave strongly, whether Bitcoin dips or pumps. Because, I mean, what you got to kind of check for is relative strength. So if you see like an altcoin that performs really well, even though Bitcoin is moving up or down and everything else goes to shit, that's probably a coin that you want to keep an eye on. One thing to note on that, in that regard, is that you obviously have to check for news and that kind of stuff. Like if there's some news coming out and it behaves strongly, that's a different kind of story. Like you don't want to, it sounds weird, but you usually want to see strength without the news, right? Like because otherwise what usually happens is you get like weakness in all the altcoins. One altcoin has like an exchange listing or whatever, goes up, and then it just follows pretty much everything else down even stronger afterwards, because altcoins are weak, right? So you don't want to be in that situation. But what you do want to see is like you see like your favorite altcoin behave strongly, have a strong bid while everything is heading down for no reason whatsoever. Then you can kind of assume, okay, there's like genuine accumulation, or like in general, like someone bigger than you trying to buy this thing. And I mean, that's usually a good kind of reason to be buying something as well.
Yeah, well collateralized Chads willing to accept the correlation nuke or bid it up in the expectation it'll go much higher when the market recovers. Yep. So yeah, good point. If part of your planning, look at shit that does well when the market isn't doing so well, whether it's green or less red than the other stuff, that'll normally be bid up once everything recovers. I've just got an example watch list here, which is my main one for the time being. It's split up into like a couple sections. One is Bitcoin. I've got like the perp and the spot. ETH. I've got ETH BTC, the perp, and spot. Consistent alts. This is just kind of stuff that you always open up your newsfeed and it's up like 20, 30% and the trends strongly. It's sort of trending alts to some extent, but in the social sense, not necessarily technical. I've got Atom, AVAX, Axes, FTT, Luna, and Solana. Pretty good list, right? As far as stuff that just kind of goes up when the market's strong and generally does okay if it's not so strong. This list will get rotated very quickly and moved around a lot. I quite like these names. Again, not an endorsement to just go market altcoins. This is the kind of stuff where I'll look for setups. I've got the Hisaka list of sort of L1 2.0 when it used to be Solana, Luna, and AVAX, I think. And now a lot of there's like a secondary effect play in, I think he's got Phantom, Near, and One as other lower cap ecosystem plays. So I've just kind of got those on my watch list to see what they do when he tweets Dalai Lama. DeFi has been kind of interesting. I really don't see myself trading, taking a ton of DeFi trades, but they're still on the watch list. I've got some standard names there: Aave, Curve, Link, Sushi, Uni, YFI. Just I think it's broad enough overview to get a sense of that sector, especially given most indices are super overweight Uni. It just makes sense to monitor that one. You'll probably be capturing most of the DeFi rotation. Unfortunately, I've got dog money as a sector as well. I'm sure I could add some stuff to this like Floki and Elon Sperm and other weird shit, but I pretty much just got dog and sheep just to see relative strength and also if it's sucking all the liquidity out of the market, whatever else. For MISC high cap, so miscellaneous high cap stuff, I should probably expand this list, but I've got Cardano, Algo, BNB, and DOT. Don't ask why. There's kind of coin market cap, top 50 stuff that I wanted to sprinkle in without going all the way back to like, XRP, Nano, and all that type of stuff. I'll leave that to Don. And then TradFi, just to see what the boomers are up to. Coin, the S&P 500 and gold. I should probably add like MicroStrategy or whatever, but again, the probability that I care or check that kind of stuff isn't terribly high. But this is just like a very basic example of something you can come up with and at a glance see what's red, what's green, where's the money flowing to. You can click change percent to filter by weakness or strength and all that type of good stuff.
Yeah, you should probably post that. People are going to ask for it.
Yeah, I know they are. People ask for a lot of things, Don.
That's true.
Also, leave a like on the video if you've learned anything so far, or at least you've been entertained. I think we've answered that. This is one that's interesting. I've seen kind of both sides. Is Dog Money Moon a top signal or an alt season indicator? So again, that just means whenever like Sheeb entered the top 10 and flipped Dogecoin, and then Doge reflipped it and mooned as well. And the top 3 out of 5 articles on Bloomberg were about dog money, which is insane. I think it was like 2 days ago, which is, telling in itself. Coinbase is back to being the... wait, is that my last point or is this the last point? Oh, thank God it's not. Okay, so Coinbase went back to being the #1 app on the App Store, and it literally says trade BTC, ETH, and Sheeb, right? So that's sort of where it is in terms of narrative shelling points. So the question is this a... is Dog Money Moon a top signal or an alt season indicator? I honestly don't know. Last time it was a top signal, especially given when it's confluent with Coinbase being the number one app, which also happens around toppy things. But there is a world in which it's a top signal, but it's a bullish one, whereby you actually get the breakout in the majors. The altcoins shit, but overall the market is up at the expense of like mega froth in alts. That's not like a high conviction thesis for me. Like if the market looks shit and I see Dog Money Moon and Coinbase number one app, etc., I'm going to be a bit more conservative. I just need to, some sort of technical follow through on that. Like if the breakouts fail, and then I'll be like, oh shit, okay, well it's time to prepare for the higher low, because we had failed all-time high breakout, Dog Money Moon, Coinbase number one app, with SHIB being mega popular across the world and flipping Dogecoin and doing more volume than Bitcoin and ETH. I'd be like, for fuck's sake, there's no way we break out with this froth, and then we bet on the higher lows. So I think if I get technical confluence into all this contextual stuff, which is normally like slightly discomforting, then I'll have a higher conviction view on it. But for the time being, it's like, I don't know, man. It's just, you get a fucking dog money vacuum, you get a dog money vacuum. I just need the technicals to align, and then I'll have a stronger view. I don't know what you think of this.
Yeah, I mean, last time there was a top, but that was like how it last time worked, right? Is we made a top, which was basically 65K with the Coinbase listing. And then Bitcoin kind of shat the bed, went to 50K, and then bounced and put like a really weak bounce in. Mm-hmm. And that's when Shiba and Dogecoin and everything pumped, right? On that complacency shoulder of that bounce, on that short time frame complacency shoulder, right? And it's a little bit different now, whereas like we had these pumps going into like basically the all-time high into strength. So I'm not quite as bearish as I used to be. Like the same situation. Obviously, it's not always the same, right? You don't really like Shiba and Doge pumping doesn't have to mean the market has topped. It's just like a worrying sign for me, because that means like we have a bunch of froth. We have a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing, entering the market, and usually they're the last to get in, right? That was the case back in May. I'm not entirely sure if it's the same kind of deal again. So like I said, I'm not as bearish as I was, but for me, it's definitely a warning sign. Makes me want to kind of reconsider whether I want to like hold into like the breakout or not. And I mean, I've been saying I'm gonna like, if Bitcoin breaks the 70K hurdle and goes towards like 80K, I'm gonna be looking to sell. One of the reasons being that retail definitely has been buying garbage. So yeah, I'm not really too excited about it, because usually that marks like at least time-wise that we're closing in on the end. But yeah, I have no strong feeling. Like it's not like, okay, this time like we're 100% gonna break down because this stuff moved. I don't think that's the case. Like you can't really make that case. That argument isn't a good one. But I also think the old season argument is really, really shit one. It's even worse than the like Dog Money Moon. That's why we have to break down, because at the end of the day, like how the altcoin market moves nowadays is very, very different to like how it's been behaving in 17, 16, 15. Back then we had a bunch of rotation going on. We had like one coin pumps, people take profit, put it in the next one. Nowadays it's very, very different. And I think that's because the audience is a different one. Like we've seen the GameStop stuff where people just hold on and never sell. And that's basically the same with like the dog money, right? All of these retail people, they're not looking to rotate. They're not looking to sell. They're just buying this garbage and then just holding it, right? So I don't really believe that there's any like big rotation going on. But I mean, could be wrong on that front. But I don't think it's a good like old season indicator at all anymore.
Did you see my poverty attempt at a clout collect on the screen, where it's my tweet about SHIB? It's very pedestrian. But generally, I like to take this kind of signal seriously. Again, I said no positions, not claiming clout for this. I'm just doing it for the meme/content. But generally speaking, when you get like these new coins, shit coins, whatever, flip Bitcoin and ETH volume, you're way closer to a short-term top than you are a bottom.
I agree.
So that's one of the consistent indicators that I sort of pay attention to.
I mean, it's worrying, definitely. I don't think it has to be the top. because people always
Yes.
whenever I make these arguments, right? And I made this point very, very clear in May that it was bad sign that the shitcoins were pumping, and then we dumped, right? And people are like, oh shit, he was right. And then people are like, okay, this time, like, you see the same thing happen again, and like, this is 100% gonna dump now, because I mean, it's worked in the past. It's like, it doesn't work like that. You can't just take a situation and then translate it one-to-one into like a completely different context.
Right.
Now, is it like bad that we're seeing this happen? In my opinion, yes. But I mean, does it have to play out the exact same way again? Obviously not, right? Because we're in a completely different scenario. Back then, Bitcoin had just basically ran from 10K to 60K without pause. And now we've had some pause, we've had some consolidation, so it doesn't have to be the end. But I mean, it's worrying nonetheless.
Okay. So I guess we've answered that question. Is Dog Money Moon a top signal alt season indicator? It's not necessarily a top signal, but it's, you know, gives you an indication of the amount of froth / retail participation in the market, and it also gives you context for, like, if the breakout fails, then you'll also know there are a bunch of plebs who'll probably get rinsed, right? Is it an alt season indicator? It's probably a better top signal than it is alt season indicator on average. But again, it contextually depends on how the market got there, blah, 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 etc., etc. I think that's a fair answer. I think people using it as like a take profit signal on like really big alt positions or even dog money positions. That's probably decent. I'm comfortable with that. It's definitely not like at least not for me, a momentum signal where I'm like, okay, finally, dog money has hit critical mass, time to long, right? That's not a trade thesis that I'm comfortable with. And I just think, like, if you're looking for alt season indicators, there's just simply better ones, like the ones we discussed, than seeing like Sheeb do 5 times Bitcoin volume and think, yeah, okay, now it's the time to buy altcoins. You know, I just don't follow that reasoning. Have we missed anything, or is that like a decently complete non-cop-out answer?
I think it's decent. I mean, the thing is, like, with alt season in general, they tend to like happen at tops, right?
Right.
So I mean, if we got one, if my kind of me saying, okay, this is not going to be rotation kind of trade is wrong, and I mean, I could see that happen, and we actually do get an alt season, then I would just say, okay, like, that would just add to the kind of confluence of, okay, shit, maybe we are putting it in top, for me anyway. Doesn't mean I'm not going to trade the alts in that case, because alt season is always nice. But it doesn't really feel like the market has gone far enough to suck in enough liquidity from retail to make anything beyond like the dog money happen, right? Like, I don't see like a world in which we just like go sideways here, and then retail comes in like for some weird reason, like a bunch of grandmas start buying like ADA again. Like, I don't.
They outperformed
I don't really
everyone. Those grandmothers.
Yeah, they did. But it's like, is that really realistic that it happens here? Like, if Bitcoin goes to 70, 80K, and then we get like sideways into like dog money pump again, I actually could see that happen, right? Then I'd be like, okay, maybe we're getting like a legitimate old season this time, where it's like, okay, alts just go completely nuts. People rotate from one coin to the next, increase risk every time. I could see that. Right now, I don't think the market is really in a situation where it can get that retail inflow that it would need for that.
Yeah, that seems like a fair answer. Hopefully that answered the question for the chat as well. I guess the TLDR to some extent is it's a dog money secure some profit signal, but the market contextually isn't at a point where that seems to be determinant of overall trend. It can probably still do stuff without this dog money thing deciding that it's the end or the beginning of something. Roughly, right? Roughly. Anyway, okay, cool. 6th question. Why did everyone stop becoming millionaires from NFTs, and when will it start again? My answer to this is...
The answer is easy.
Well, first of all, why did everyone stop becoming millionaires from NFTs? Well, like, I think there are a couple factors. The first is that the underlying price, like the price that the NFTs are quoted in, so those ETH assets, those SOL assets, they mooned. And that naturally gives you this sort of illiquid, impermanent loss, where you're holding, quote unquote, a certain amount in ETH, but you're not holding that amount because it's not liquid, and also you're not really holding ETH, you're holding an NFT which you'll need to sell for like a reduced amount of ETH. So you're not really benefiting from the price movement in the underlying asset. And often your NFT will get repriced kind of in USD terms as a result as well. Also, someone Halo Crypto says, "'Cause Don and Cred invested." Yeah, I mean, that's a really better answer than I've got. And I guess the second thing is, you usually get like market froth when projects turn to like pure copycat, lazy garbage, zero innovation. And you basically had that plus infinite supply and de facto dilution from thousands, it feels like, 10K generative profile picture images, right? Just completely flooding the market. You had peak froth where you'd like mint anything, and then it would go up like 2, 5, 10x on secondary markets. And just the amount of money floating around, it's just insane. And then the supply just became enormous. You had, and doing the same thing, no innovation, nothing. You had the ETH and Sol, whatever, go up in price, meaning there's a lot of impermanent loss and those NFTs getting repriced in real terms. And yeah, it's just kind of a liquidity crunch and seems like a blow-offy, frothy type of thing in the market. In terms of when will it start again, honestly, I think if the alt season scenario plays out as a consequence of, you know, a 70-80k breakout, and, you know, the market blows up, everyone's happy, then it starts to range and risk starts to look for a new home, which isn't in the majors. I think there's a really good chance that like you get like an NFT alt season again, basically post breakout. That makes sense to me. And, you know, again, those ecosystem native holders, like all the guys in ETH, all the guys in Sol, etc., will be kind of rich in ETH and Sol terms and USD as well. So they'll probably look to rotate out or quote unquote diversify. Lol, it's not diversifying at all, but you know what I mean? Just buy like ecosystem native NFTs, yada yada. I just think the narrative starts to become attractive again when the alt season narrative is attractive. And for us, or for me, that's probably best on a post breakout consolidation. So TLDR, why did everyone stop? Because froth and infinite supply and the underlying assets went up, so people were liquidated and suffering impermanent loss with no easy fix. When will it start again? Probably when the majors nuke liquidity in alts completely, and then it kind of flows back after an all-time high consolidation type of thingy that we discussed. That's my kind of framework, at least. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I think a big reason that is not as often discussed is also just ETH fees. I mean, ETH fees has been like completely stupid, and people are like, yeah, then just move to another chain. But I think that's not necessarily like how it works. Like, you need ETH, in my opinion, anyway. And I mean, people on like other like owning other NFTs on other like chains are going to hate me for this, but I think like you need ETH to kind of work properly, to lead the charge so that like the entire sector of NFTs can do well. It's basically like Bitcoin doing well and then like the altcoins piggybacking, right? And I think it's the same with ETH NFTs. Basically, you want to have them do well, and then the other projects like Solana or whatever, like those NFTs are going to do well as well. And you can dodge the fees of ETH, but you cannot dodge like, okay, if no one buys NFTs on ETH anymore, NFTs in general get less attractive to people. And then everyone kind of loses money, even though like the fee problem is just like an ETH problem. It's just how this market works, right? It's the same with Bitcoin and altcoins. You think about it, like Bitcoin goes down, people are like less risky to risk buying altcoins, and it's the same thing with NFTs, in my opinion anyway. And I mean, everything else that Cred said, basically I subscribe to as well. Like, I think if you get like an old season, I think NFTs, if you do get an old season, and I mean, that's still like a big if, I think NFT season is actually going to be bigger than old season. It's just further out of the risk curve. But I mean, I'm not necessarily the biggest NFT fan in general.
I think your portfolio might disagree, but yeah.
I mean, I do have a few, but I mean, what I basically have been doing with NFTs is just like I bought my friends' projects, and then if like the money's gone, the money's gone, right? Yeah. Worst case,
you know who to shake down.
Yeah, exactly. I just go and shake my friends for money, get it back. That's fine. No, obviously not going to get it back. But in general, like, I don't really mind losing that part of my portfolio. And so that's why, like, I don't really mind too much.
Yeah.
But it's definitely it's super risky. I think in general it's gonna outperform if we get like risk on in crypto as a whole, not only in the majors. And once that happens, it's gonna be fun again. Until that happens, I mean, and the problem is, like I said, with the fees, if they keep being this high, there's very, very limited windows of times where you can actually make a bunch of money with stuff that works on the ETH platform. And I don't think that problem goes away anytime soon. So that's like the biggest problem in my eyes. But we'll see. We'll see what the future brings.
It just seems like crypto, like at certain points in crypto, certain sectors are where you quote unquote make it if you're dealing with a smaller balance. Like it was DeFi slash Uniswap gems, actual garbage, right?
Yep.
When that was happening. And it just, I agree with the tweet you made where if you've got like a smaller portfolio or whatever, and you're clearly not going to be making much of trying to scalp Bitcoin futures for like 1 to 2% moves, you probably just like ape into some NFTs, some mints, and expect most of them to go to zero, but maybe one does really well, or you flip a few in that kind of environment where mints actually are flippable, and that's your ticket to upgrading, so to speak. So I think it was DeFi slash yield farms and Uniswap gems a couple years ago or during DeFi season. I feel like if the market's risk on, I agree with you that NFTs are probably, if your portfolio is such, you go there, and it's probably a bit more fun and easier than all the DeFi farm whatever stuff anyway. But you can just see it now. All the new mints are getting completely hammered and trading below mint price like a day later. It's really a bit of that's like one of the best proxies or indicators you can get for the health of the market. And a lot of these high profile mints or whatever, they're just getting pummeled, mate. So that'll be one of the first shifts of behavior to pay attention to get an idea of risk in the NFT space, as well as just your Twitter feed. There was a point at which I literally saw 0 Bitcoin charts for like a month straight, and I was like, fucking hell, like I should just log off or like deactivate my account. I've got nothing to do here. This is past my purview. So that kind of stuff can help as well. But I agree. Yeah, we've answered all 6 questions. Leave a like if that was helpful. I do, it's quite fun inventing stuff that people want answered and seeing that it's not total fiction. I want to do a speed / lightning round about news headlines for the last 10 minutes. Just kind of get some color, get some context. The first one, crypto fork uses dog meme to raise 60 million - then the money goes missing. So this is today. Is this today's rug? Olympus? Yeah, Anubis DAO. It was again a fork of Olympus DAO, which is I think that project's in like a bit of trouble just by association. There have been so many Ohm forks, right? And all of them have suffered like weird reputational issues and about stealth launches and this, that, and the other. And this is one that I know a lot of crypto Twitter guys were participants in, or investors, or whatever you want to call it. And it got rugged / exploited, or whatever else. And it's raised concerns about people's OPSEC and whether it was intentional, internal. A couple of friends got hurt over it, like properly. So yeah, that's really the first bit. I'm sure you've seen it over the timeline, right?
I have,
yeah.
There's so much money in the space that like it hasn't really mattered too much in the grand scheme of things. But it's kind of scary when you see like these things happen over and over and over again, because you would like to think that like it happens once or twice and then people like wise up. But there seems to be like so many issues to take advantage of that. I mean, it's just easy to like take 60 million.
It's a lot, man.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. And I mean, it makes me like it scares me a little bit that people have this much money to like kind of throw around and they're not secure properly.
Yeah,
because that is like a good indication of where we are in this bubble. Because you wouldn't see necessarily like these valuations get like exploited at like bottoms, because no one has that much money in these kind of things that aren't proven, right? So it worries me a little bit in general, like technical wise. I can't really say much about it because I don't understand half of what's happening.
Don't click on PDFs. You get an email, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the one thing.
Yeah, and then in general, like, don't trust anyone with all your money. I mean, if you want to put money into something, just put it in, like, in general, like, spread your bets in crypto, especially because I've seen a bunch of people like advocate for, okay, make like concentrated bets, blah, blah, blah. But like the team can be like the best you can kind of imagine. If you can't check the code yourself, you're kind of trusting their ability to do it for you. And you don't want to be in a situation where you lose your entire stack.
Your position size should reflect that trust and lack of technical expertise or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I know hopefully our friends are okay. This sucks, and I saw Sisyphus tweet that he's working with chain analysis now or whatever, so maybe they get something back. Probably not, but yeah, careful on that one. Did you see this Punk sale for $500 million yesterday? Well, Punk sale, it was a de facto wash trade as a result of a flash loan. Maybe, I think the idea was just now everyone's talking about this Punk, right? Which is kind of genius marketing, if you really think about it. But from a narrative point of view, you just hand ammo to the people who say that NFTs are being wash traded. But it was fun to watch, and if that's a way to accrue value to punks, get them involved in these crazy transactions using DeFi and everything, it kind of looks cool technologically, but probably not so good for value provenance, right?
Yeah, I mean, it hands ammo to the people that want to shit talk it anyway. But I mean, honestly, those people don't really matter too much because I mean, they're just like
seething all the time.
Yeah, it's like their mind will not be changed anyway
by anything.
And then like there's no way that you can. I've seen people argue against Bitcoin from $10 upwards to like 10,000 and then 60,000, and they're never gonna change their mind, right?
They'll celebrate every 10% dip though.
Yep, and they're gonna be loud every time it goes down 50%, even though like when they started hating it, it was like 1,000,000% lower. It's like those people are never gonna change their mind, and I think it's like a genius marketing trick, if anything. Marketing. And I mean,
good for
not
good
really
for
big impact in general.
Shows also the DeFi is pretty cool, right? Like.
Yeah, that's nuts. If you can do that, it's completely
the amount
crazy.
of ETH burned daily sets new record 2 days running. So this is kind of we just forgot about this, right? When ETH was ripping from the lows, the idea, well, even before that, right, before the crash, on the way up, it was the idea that ETH is now sound money, deflationary, whatever. From a catalyst point of view, it would just look really nice when ETH is making all-time highs, price discovery, and it's sort of getting more deflationary as it's going up type of thing. It was supposed to be, it just feels like that narrative, while still being technically valid / active, has died down a bit. And ETH BTC doesn't show any indication of, billions of ETH being burned or whatever. I'm still of the view that catalyst was mostly priced in on the way up. And I mean that even before the crash that came in May, we were talking about ETH becoming deflationary. Is that an ETH chart? Yeah. I mean, it was during this rally, right? It was like on this leg where we were discussing all that type of stuff. And I feel like it did its job properly. It's not a bad thing if we get strong price action, that this kind of stuff picks up and keeps going. But it just feels like the material impact of this technical and fundamental change has kind of done its job from a momentum trading point of view. It's still very cool, but I feel like it's sort of disappointed a lot of people who are waiting for the actual burn to start happening, and then you're long off of that, etc. The ETH BTC doesn't really show it.
Yeah, I mean, ETH BTC has been like the most boring chart in crypto.
Yes.
Like legitimately just goes sideways for like half a year now, a little bit more than that.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I think you explained it really well. It's basically like people anticipating, and the fact that it's staying sideways is already, I think, a good sign of strength.
Yeah.
Considering that like it was so overhyped.
I mean, daily market structure is starting to look a bit more decent. Like, I know it's a larger range, but for a couple months, it was just like in a straight downtrend. I'm showing it now. I mean, this is like pretty decisive as far as market structure goes, like very textbook. And then, recent little shift. Maybe we're gearing up for something. Very early days, obviously, but at least it's not like straight down anymore, which is a good thing nowadays on lower time frames anyway. Yeah. So that's ETH. I'm sure you were following this yesterday. Facebook becoming like Meta, right? Yeah. And then wanting to be like a metaverse company first, and digital goods and NFTs and yada yada. I don't know what to think. Like, I didn't trust Facebook. I didn't trust them or like them following their historic indiscretions. But overall for the sector, they're obviously a trend setter and leader in tech. and it says something about like the NFTs, metaverse, digital provenance of goods, all this type of stuff that we spend all day thinking about and de facto participating in. It's pretty bullish for the sector that this seems to be a pretty big bet and rebranding on Facebook's behalf. I mean, the company's literally changed its name, right?
Yeah.
So that's bullish in the medium to long term. I just hope we don't sacrifice open source decentralization principles for centralized convenience. But of course we will. That's what's going to happen.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean, I think in general, like that's a big risk for crypto. Yeah, it kind of loses its soul. But I mean, who knows, right? I think it's bullish for like prices.
Yeah,
definitely. It's not bullish for the idea of crypto. Like I think that's actually like a battle that's gonna have to be hard fought, and I think probably like the crypto natives are probably gonna lose it. But I mean, maybe I'm too like cynical, and I hope I am. But I mean, I could just see like Facebook kind of push this forward, and I mean, it's good for prices, but that's like not like what this entire space
what did
is
it cost?
all about.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, my NFT's up like a bunch of %, but is that really worth it? I don't know. But I mean, it's good. It's good for prices. So at least one thing, and then
we can fight the culture war once we're all rich from our JPEGs, right? Let's just call it that.
Yep. I mean, once Zuckerberg buys my wussies, I mean, I'll get back at him with my millions and billions.
It's a good way to look at it. The final note, and again, if you've been with us for this whole time, thanks for hanging out. We're just wrapping up, so make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe for the next one. I just want to talk to you about the state of the futures market. Altcoin derivatives have flattened out a lot. Like this entire list was 150, 200% APR. There's still some heat in specific names, like dog-related ones and a couple of the DeFi ones, but it certainly flattened out a lot over what it was as a result of the dip, and price hasn't really changed that much and hasn't seen that like a ton of liquidations to cause that, so that's pretty good. It looks better than it did in our fucking newsletter, that's for sure. As for global open interest charts, I think this is 29th, yeah. So it's down. It went down, right, which is good. We didn't want to see price continue making lower highs while leverage was making higher highs. We posted this chart in Technical Roundup. Go to trletter.com and sign up. It's free. At like the Schmeeko top, right, the price had made a lower high and derivatives made a higher high, which is shitty. We got a bit of a flush in that. So the peak was at 48 billion. And today it's at 45. That's nothing, right? Like as far as market-wide open interest flushes go, I saw some commentary suggesting that the weak hands had been shaken out, whatever. Not at all, right? Like it's not. This doesn't stack up to what you normally get if you're really talking about derivatives getting beaten the fuck up. Mostly because this list isn't like negative with huge open interest changes, etc. I think the chart that shows that best is the aggregated kind of Bitcoin global chart. From, again, our friends over at CoinLies. And you can kind of just see this on the 4-hour. The dip that we had and yesterday's spike, etc., not much really has changed in the open interest world. It's sort of just mostly trailed price and no big washouts or anything else. Funding has been mostly flat in terms of basis and whatnot. No significant delevering in that regard either. And then just on a relative basis, where are the big liquidation dildos type of thing that we're used to if you're going to make the washout argument? You don't have to. The market can just go up without some mega spike, shake them all out, then go up type of thing. It's allowed to just go up, right, without leverage getting squashed. But if you're making that argument, it's just a hard-pressed one based on lack of changes in open interest, funding still being where funding is, and, just to use the most colloquial version, just turn on aggregated liquidations and look for dildos, and there just aren't any. So if you're waiting for a washout, you haven't had it yet. And again, my view is, can it happen, in the pre-all-time high scenario where it goes down, makes a lower high first, and then moons? Absolutely. Could it happen? Could it not happen and instead wait until 80 whatever K and then take place? For sure. But in either of those cases, that trade hasn't set up yet, in my opinion. There's just not enough evidence to support some sort of delevering, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think we need it.
Yeah.
Can easily moon without it. which would actually be kind of nice. Like if you get a moon into like 70, 80K and then go sideways,
Yes.
build up even more leverage and then just fucking mega dump.
And then buy all the shit coins when that happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be actually like the best and kind of most normal crypto scenario that, I mean, everyone that has been trading this market for a while kind of would appreciate, because it's the easiest way to trade this thing. Doesn't have to happen though. But I definitely agree. Like I saw the same comments and like Bitcoin was down like 2%. I was like, oh, fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's like, it's this thing where like people stare at the 5 minute too much and then they see like a big red candle and then they're like, okay, this is like everyone's liquidated now. And it's not the case, right? Like no one that trades any significant size other than like one or two like individuals that get fucked completely from time to time really cares about these kind of like small movements. They start getting fucked when the movements are like 10, 15, 20, 25% plus. And I mean, you can see it in the volume, you can see it everywhere. So yeah, definitely agree with kind of what you've been saying, that I don't think we've had a washout. I don't think we need a washout, but yeah, it's basically
trade the washout, because when it happens, it'll be fucking massive, probably,
Yep.
right? Like when it actually happens, that's like an awesome mean reversion trade, at least, that you get once every few months. If you're not like at your desk there to take advantage of something like that, like alts crashing like 40%. You know, if it, as soon as that shit looks scary and wick list just like it's going to zero on a daily, you start scaling in, like it just fucking snaps back 15, 20, 25% of essentially free money, as long as you don't get liquidated. Especially if it's the type of name which we know that backstop bid comes into, like a Solana or like anything, you know, one of those types of things, like a Luna, etc., etc. Like just one of those trades that you want to be there for. And be there in terms of like capitalize, ready to take advantage of it, not in terms of leverage to the tits, try not to get liquidated and adding margin to all your positions. You want to have some sort of stack to punt with when that is the case.
100% agree. I think in general, like if you're a crypto trader and you have like your hold stack or whatever on the side, and I mean, most people kind of have that. If you specialize in those kind of days where open interest goes so high that at some point it just has to crash, and then you just buy the fucking dip on those days, you'd probably outperform most other people in the market, which is hilarious because you only have to do like something once every quarter. And I mean, that's been the case for years and years now. The only kind of thing standing between you and that kind of optimized version of a trader is like patience. And I know like most people don't have it, so like no reason to kind of preach about it too much. But I mean, if you can kind of get that patience to be like in that situation and then have the balls to pull it off, I mean, then you basically get like the freest money that you can get in crypto.
For sure. Cool. That was pretty comprehensive. Lots of good stuff. I've got nothing else. Hopefully we've answered the important stuff for the benefit of our audience. If any of that was cool, fun, or you want to support us, like the video, subscribe to the channel so you get more of it. Make sure to follow and support our sponsor, which is FTX, formerly Blockfolio. Again, for all your flexing in the club, you know, the correct app to pull out if you're trying to show a girl or guy your portfolio is Blockfolio, formerly Blockfolio, now FTX. If I ever do that, Duck, you just have to put me down, you know. You just see me barely standing on my feet, and then I'm trying to like tap the Blockfolio app, but I'm pressing the wrong one because I can't see straight. Like you need to intervene and make sure that doesn't happen. But in principle, nothing terribly wrong with it. If there's any app you're going to show a female at the club, you might as well make it FTX, formerly Blockfolio. Any final notes, or are we good to go?
I think we're good to go.
Sweet. That's all from us. Thanks, and we will see you on Monday, either for a stream or spaces, something from me. And yeah, like, subscribe, YouTube algo. Don't get liquidated. See you next time.
Bye-bye.